I'm 87 years old now. I didn't expect to still be here, if I'm honest. Most mornings I wake up surprised, like I've overstayed somewhere I was supposed to leave quietly. The house is still, too still. And lately, when I sit at the small table by the window, watching the light crawl across the floor, there's one question that keeps coming back to me, a simple one. It arrived late, too late, but it changed how I see everything I already lived. At this age, time feels different. It doesn't stretch anymore. It compresses. Whole decades fold into a single afternoon memory. I'll hear a spoon clink against a mug, and suddenly I'm 30. I think about death more than I talk about it. Not in a dramatic way. More like how you think about weather when you know a storm is coming. You don't panic, you just notice the sky. I notice my hands shaking. I notice how names take longer to arrive. I notice how quiet it gets when you outlive most of the people who once knew you well. I used to believe life was something you moved through, like a hallway. You kept your head down, followed the signs, did what you were supposed to do, and eventually reached the end. I didn't question that for a long time. I was busy. I was responsible. I was doing fine by most measures that mattered to other people. In my 20s, I was certain I had time. That was the great assumption. Time felt infinite then, like air. I didn't count it. I didn't respect it. I spent it the way you spend loose change, without thinking it could ever run out. I wanted to be useful. I wanted to be seen as reliable. I wanted approval, even if I wouldn't have used that word back then. I married young, not foolishly. It made sense. She was kind, steady, good with details I always forgot. We built a life that looked solid from the outside. Jobs, schedules, plans. We didn't fight much. We also didn't talk much about anything that felt dangerous. We told ourselves that was maturity. In my 30s and 40s, work became the main thing. Not because I loved it, because it asked something clear of me. Show up, solve problems, stay late if needed. There was comfort in that. At home, things were more complicated. Emotions don't come with instructions. Work did. I told myself I was doing it for my family, and that was partly true, but it wasn't the whole truth. The rest of it was fear. Fear of being still. Fear of asking myself what I actually wanted. Fear of discovering I might not like the answer. There were small moments I ignored. A missed dinner. A school event I said I'd make next time. A conversation my wife tried to start when I was too tired to listen properly. None of it felt important on its own. That's how it gets you. The damage never announces itself. It accumulates, quietly, politely. I remember one night coming home late, finding her asleep on the couch with the television still on. I stood there for a moment, keys in my hand, watching her chest rise and fall. I felt something then, a brief ache, but I didn't follow it. I turned off the TV, grabbed a blanket, and went to bed. I told myself I'd do better tomorrow. Tomorrow came and went, many times. The years kept moving. Promotions came. Paychecks grew. So did the distance. Our conversations became logistical. Who's picking up what? What needs fixing? What can wait? We became good managers of a shared life,
less so of a shared heart. I didn't think of myself as unhappy. That's important to say. I wasn't miserable. I was functional, content enough. I thought unhappiness had to be loud to count. I didn't recognize the quieter version, the one that just hums in the background and slowly drains the color from things. The turning point didn't arrive with drama. No shouting, no sudden collapse. It came on an ordinary day, years later, after retirement. I had more time then. Ironically, that's when the weight of everything I'd postponed finally showed up. I was sitting in a waiting room, a doctor's office, not for anything serious, at least not yet, just routine, the kind of appointment you assume will end with reassurance. An older man sat across from me, older than I was then, thin, calm. We exchanged the kind of polite nods strangers share when they know they'll be in the same place for a while. At some point, he spoke, not to me directly at first, more like to the room. He said, "Funny thing about getting old, you finally have time, but that's when you realize what you were supposed to be doing with it." We talked after that. Small talk turned into something deeper. I don't even remember how. Before I knew it, he asked me a question. Just one. Who did you give your best hours to? I laughed at first, made a joke, said something about work, responsibility. He didn't smile. He just waited. That question followed me home. It sat with me at the kitchen table. It lay next to me in bed. It didn't accuse, it didn't explain, it just stayed. Who did I give my best hours to? Not my leftovers, not my tired moments, my best ones, the sharp, attentive, alive parts of the day. The answer was obvious, and it hurt more than I expected. Not my wife, not my children, if I'm honest. I gave them what was left, what remained after the world had taken its share. Once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. Everything rearranged itself in my memory. Moments I thought were harmless suddenly had weight. Opportunities I dismissed as trivial revealed their cost. By then, some things were already gone. My wife had passed not long before that conversation, quietly, in her sleep. I sat with that guilt longer than I'll admit out loud, not because I didn't love her, but because I loved her lazily, assuming love could survive neglect. By then, some things were already gone. My wife had passed not long before that conversation, quietly in her sleep. I sat with that guilt longer than I'll admit out loud, not because I didn't love her, but because I loved her lazily, assuming love could survive neglect. I tried to reconnect with my children, but time had already done its shaping. They were polite, kind, busy. They had lives built without much expectation of me in the center. That was my doing, even if it wasn't intentional. You can't retroactively be present. You can't go back and reassign your attention. You can apologize, and you should, but apologies don't restore what consistency would have built. Now, at 87, my days are slow. I move carefully. I sit more than I stand. I think more than I speak. That question still visits me, but it's gentler now, less sharp. It has already done its work. I don't carry this as a warning sign or a lesson plan. I carry it as a truth, a simple one. Your life is made of hours, not years, not milestones, hours. And you decide, often without noticing where the best ones go. I used to believe there would be a later phase where everything meaningful would finally happen, a calmer chapter, a time when I'd show up fully. That belief cost me more than any failure ever did. If you're listening to this and it stirs something, don't rush to fix anything. Just notice. Notice where your attention goes when you're at your best. Notice who gets the clear version of you and who gets what's left. That noticing alone is powerful.
I'm not bitter. I'm grateful I was allowed to see it at all. Some people never do. I sit by the window now and give my best hours to small things, to listening, to remembering honestly, to being here, fully, even if here is quieter than I once imagined. At the end of a life, you don't wish you'd been busier. You wish you'd been less distracted. That's all I know now, and it took me nearly 90 years to ask the right question.